Last time I began the talk by saying, I always start with okay, but then I realized I usually say so. So, yeah, when I make the DVD. So, when I say so, now, yeah, now let's do a little meditation to begin, so we can calm our minds. I'm going to say so. Now, put your body in a comfortable position with the spine erect and relax your mind. Place your attention on the inhalation and the exhalation, the respiration. And bring your attention further inside to your mental consciousness. Try to let go not only of the outer distractions, but also let go of letting your mind roam to the inner distractions. So focus on the clarity of the mind. It's just its basic nature behind the thoughts. As a clear pool of water is the basic structure behind an aquarium, although the fish, the seaweed, the various particles in it move around from time to time. What's always true is the clarity of the water. Like that, our mind is always cleared light by nature, temporarily obscured by the discursive thought, the inner dialogue, your inner videotape. So rather than focusing on the content, focus on the matrix, the medium. if some thought or appearance seems to be immovable, like say, for instance, the appearance of your body, the solidity or seeming presence of your body, ask yourself what consciousness is perceiving this. Focus on the subjective mind rather than the objective thought, as though turning your back to that which is confronting you, say the appearance or the thought, looking back to the subject, mind, clear light. And think, although this is my nature, even in other rebirths, consciousness of clear light, I'm very unlikely to be able to recognize it if I'm born as an animal, or as a spirit, as a hell being. Even in the realms of the gods, the desire realm gods, the form, formless realm, difficult to turn the mind to such meditation. There's so much pleasure. While we have the ability to work on our mind, develop good qualities, eliminate bad qualities, we recognize that we have to do so because this time is not unlimited. Death is coming. With every breath we take, we're getting one breath closer to our inevitable demise. And what we do with this mind is very, very important. We can use it for worldly means to satisfy ourselves with pleasure of the senses or of ego-pleasing words, to have friends and family and loved ones, fame, wealth, power. None of those pursuits, though, we can recognize with a clear mind, bring real satisfaction. Almost inevitably, if those goals are pursued for the happiness of this lifetime, we create negative karma in pursuing them. The life finishes. We have nothing to take with us except the negative imprints that we have left in our consciousness, negative karma, karmic seeds. So for once, this lifetime, having some clarity, even in this degenerate age where there's so much temptation and anger and confusion, jealousy, pride, I myself am going to take advantage of this perfect human rebirth because we've encountered the Mahayana spiritual friends who themselves are embodying this practice of developing good heart for the welfare of others. I'm going to use this opportunity tonight to get closer to that understanding of the stages of the path, the Lam Rim, so that I can overcome my bad points, my faults, develop that which is good in me fuller and fuller, perhaps develop qualities that I don't yet even have an inkling of. avoid harming others, eventually be able to help them and lead them out of suffering into the most stable, blissful, meaningful happiness possible, to the full awakening, to enlightenment. So that for that purpose, as the Buddha taught, I'm going to listen, hear the teachings tonight to better be able to practice the stages of the path for the welfare of all sentient beings. And then bring your attention back to the present. I want to say so. Maybe that's just, the Tibetan Lamas, they always have little expressions that they use again and again, idiosyncratic things. There's one thing that even, it's supposedly Lama Tsong often said, something like, Karisagere. The Dalai Lama often says, other Lamas say, it means, how do I say, or what should I say, or something like that. Do we use that in English sometimes? Sometimes people say, how to say. Yeah, how to say. How can I say this? Or what can I say in some cases? Any questions? Tenzin?
Of course. What's a Buddhist sin?
What's a Buddha?
A Buddhist sin.
What's?
The text was referring to sins in Buddhism.
Okay.
I know there are Catholicism, but I wasn't quite sure if there were in Buddhism.
So the word sin, I'm not sure what the etymology is in our English language and European languages. What's it in Spanish? Italian is what? Peccata, something? Fall? Anyway, what's it? Beefsteak? Oh, mistake. That's a mistake. What is translated as sin is probably the Tibetan word dikpa, which could be translated as negativity. When we create negative karma, we've created some negativity, unskillful mode of behavior, which leaves karmic imprints, which have repercussions on our continuum, right? So from a Buddhist perspective, there's not the sense that, in my mind, when I hear the word sin, I kind of have a feeling of guilt, like you've been bad. Do you have that feeling from the word sin? So, as I've mentioned before, guilt is not an appropriate response from a Buddhist perspective at all. Guilt is a very unskillful response to recognizing that we've done something wrong. Do you know why? Who can explain why? We talked about this before. Don? Can you? Well, what is guilt? What is guilt? What kind of state of mind is guilt? Is it some? Yep, no, but I mean, what's happening in the mind?
It's a mind that knows virtue, in a sense, and yet has done non-virtue, but has the simultaneous awareness, or at moments of that non-virtue of knowing, oh, I shouldn't do this, but I did it anyway. Now I feel guilty.
Okay.
But there's something in the mind.
There. You want to say something, Lisa? What do you think?
Well, it seems to me as though remorse would be something like the shame that we were talking about in the other class of I don't want to do this because it's not good for me. Or guilt would be kind of an overblown sense of I'm bad. Too much emphasis on I.
Maybe.
Overblown ego. I did something bad.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be something that's solidifying the situation, I, or the particular thing that was done. I sometimes joke that my Catholic and Jewish friends all argue about who invented guilt. They always like to say, the Catholics like to say it's a Catholic invention. Did you go to Catholic school? Yeah. So you were probably told there were certain things that were bad and that you were stained by them. And the only way that you could remove that stain was not by yourself. You had to be forgiven by something else. You had to seek. And sometimes if you did something really bad, you didn't want to ask, you didn't even want to let on that you did that, so that you were really in a predicament. So you, or you felt you were stained, and so you felt guilty. Guilt is a different state of mind than remorse. Remorse or regret, from a Buddhist perspective, I think would be much more skillful. One that recognizes that we've created some negativity or sin, if you want, which was created unskillfully. It's an unskillful way of acting, and it will have repercussions, like having consumed poison, right? If you accidentally consumed poison, would you feel guilty about it? Yeah, that depends. You might feel stupid, among other things, but probably more or less you'd regret that, and you would try to find an antidote for that right away. If you recognize the poison was something that was quickly going to cause you harm, right? You wouldn't go around saying, "Oh, I feel so guilty. I've eaten poison." It doesn't seem to work. So that's not how our mind would work. So in terms of understanding that the negativities or sins that we've created, the negative karma that we've created, are like that. They're going to have some repercussions, like ingesting poison. That's what we call the poisonous minds, because they create that kind of situation: attachment, hatred, ignorance, and all of their ramifications. They create negativity or sin and poisonous kind of effects that will result from those karmic imprints in our mind. So if you regret that, thinking, "Ooh, I shouldn't have done that," already one is helping to prevent that kind of activity from coming again in a certain way, helping to prevent the effects of that karma from ripening, rather than rejoicing about it. Say, for instance, if you create some negative action, some sin, and you think, "I got him." Is that what they do in America? Isn't it this? Or is it this? Something? I can't remember. What's right?
Depends if you're rejoicing or...
Oh, yeah, if you're punching or rejoicing. So like when they score the touchdown, or your team wins, or you got them really bad. Your enemy, you humiliated them, or they were humiliated by someone else, and yes, that's rejoicing in negativity, and that causes that negativity to have even greater ramifications. On the other hand, if you regret, as we'll talk about today, feel some remorse, "I shouldn't have done that," it's exactly the opposite of rejoicing. There's a hesitancy in the mind, not wanting to feel good about that action, knowing that it was unskillful and going to have some ramifications on oneself, on one's ability to help others, on one's guru or the Buddha's opinion of oneself. You've let them down. Whereas guilt seems to be something much more solidifying, as Lisa was saying, something that as though you've been stained, and there's no way by yourself you can extricate that other than by requesting forgiveness from some superpower. So that's not how we purify in Buddhism, that we request the Buddhas to purify our mind streams. So we might make prayers like that to help us, that their inspiring strength can help us to purify. But the purifier is ourself, like reciting the names of the Buddhas, or applying the four opponent forces and so forth. Okay, does that help?
Yes.
Buddhist sin.
Through the support of the Buddha, the Guru and the Buddha.
So the Buddha said, the Buddhas do not purify sins like people bathing in the Ganges. The Buddhas do not take out suffering like taking a thorn from the hand. They don't transmit blessings by hand. The Buddhas show the way. So although we might go to great lamas thinking that they're going to purify us or something, the act of purification is something that you have to do yourself. Attainment of enlightenment is something you have to do yourself. The Buddhists can't just go, zap, or it's like sometimes you go up and you come up to the Lama and they put their hands on your head and you feel, oh, I've been blessed. Sometimes there's some definite, kind of blessing that can take place, but that's that's not how we evolve. We have to do the work ourselves. Okay. Anything else you want to ask?
Related question.
Frank.
Is there any difference between positive karma and merit? Is all positive karma merit, or is it that some positive karma is, it could be considered merit and some is not meritorious, but it's still positive karma that might ripen and then...
Who knows? Carrie, do you know? Well, he said merit. What did you say? What kind of karma? Positive karma. So we say when we learned in our mind and mental factors other classes, usually the word is virtuous karma. Say gewa. I mean, you could call it positive, but often we translate that as virtue. Is there a difference between virtuous karma and merit? Are they one and the same? You remember? No? Okay, what's the... You remember? Okay, we did talk about that before. Huh? Maybe that's why Frank has that doubt, because he remembers. Do you remember, Mark, difference between...
Isn't one only, like you're creating, I'm not sure if it's the virtue or merit to take a good rebirth, and then one is specifically directed towards enlightenment, or... Sure.
When we talk about... sometimes we talk about three different kinds of karma. Virtuous karma, non-virtuous karma, meritorious karma, unmeritorious karma, and immovable. That doesn't cover all karma because it doesn't cover what, the kind of karma which is unpredicted, sort of neutral karma. But that's one of the divisions of karma. So, meritorious, non-meritorious, and immovable. What's immovable karma? Or unwavering karma?
Formless realms, isn't it?
Pardon me?
That it would only be karma to be reborn in the form of formless realms?
It's karma that will only ripen in a particular realm and can't ripen in any other realm. I'm not sure if there's any other examples, but the usual example that's given is, for instance, if you attain one of the concentrations this lifetime by developing tranquil abiding, or the preparation to the first concentration, you create the karma, the throwing karma, to be born in the first concentration in a subsequent life. You could actually attain the mental state this lifetime, but you still got this old body, right? This bag of bones. Parkinson's, what? Carcass. But in a future life, you create the karma to be born in that particular realm, not in the second realm, not in the third realm, not in the formless realm, but by generating that particular concentration, that's immovable. So so when we talk about meritorious, non-meritorious, and immovable, is the karma to be born, is that immovable karma virtuous? Well, yeah, for first concentration. Sounds like that's virtuous karma. So there's a difference between virtuous karma and meritorious karma. If something is meritorious, it's necessarily virtue, right? But if it's virtue, it's not necessarily meritorious. Because, for instance, immovable karma is some immovable karma, such as to be born in the form and formless realms. That is virtuous, but it's not called merit. It's not called meritorious karma. Does that help? So it's a little kind of like one of those obscure...
And the definition of meritorious karma
definition.
As opposed to unmeritorious karma is what? That karma goes towards something, towards your progression towards enlightenment, or?
No, not necessarily toward progression of enlightenment, because we, even before we met the path and had any sense of renunciation, we might have created meritorious karma, virtuous karma other than immovable karma.
It's virtuous.
Merit is in general, people, if you ask people at first glance, they would say they're synonymous. But there is just this one, just slight difference that when the Buddha talked about meritorious, non-meritorious, and immovable karma, he was setting out a distinction that he was not qualifying immovable karma as meritorious. That's my understanding. So if you find some better explanation, please share with us. Okay. No one else has a question? Oh, Tom.
On the last question, the immovable karma to be reborn in, is that a form realm? The concentration one, is that a form?
Yeah, can be. There's different concentrations, the form and formless. Mm-hmm.
Is it not defined meritorious? Because if you go to one of those concentration realms, I've heard, it's really pleasurable. So you're burning up all your good karma, and then what you're left with at the end of that great eon of pleasure is this negative karma, and you just go down afterwards.
That's not the reason that it's not called, well, it is not called meritorious karma from my understanding, so that doesn't work exactly with that, but you could say to be born as a human, even as a desire realm god. You don't have to be born in the form realms. You're born as a desire realm god, and very, very pleasurable, and you might use up much of your merit in so doing and being born there. But, yeah. So you don't have to be born in the form realms to, even as a human, you can be born as a king or a movie star or someone very rich or very famous. Everything goes right for you. All your good karma is sort of ripening at one time. And if you had not made prayers in previous lives that when such karma ripened, that it would be beneficial for your spiritual path and for the benefit of others, you could just could be used up, just like your bank account being dissipated and you're not putting anything back in, your whole life, rather than creating any virtue that lifetime. You could just be proud and think you deserve it. And what do we call it? There's something when people talk about the certain state of mind that kind of expects that this is what the honor that we should be receiving. What do they call it? The something class. Yeah, it's sort of like, think of oneself as as privileged, somehow. So anyway, that's coming later when we get to karma. So you can check in the section on karma. Sorry about that. I was going to say so. I'll say so. Okay, I can't stop myself. So. Just to finish up a little bit about the section on the spiritual guide, because often when Lam Rim teachings are given, there are different traditions. One topic might be covered at least 3 or 4 times, sort of an introduction, a longer explanation, a recapitulation, and then a summary on separate days. So you might think the teacher is kind of absent-minded. You think, oh, they talked about that already. He's talking about it again. But there's a purpose to hear it, very concisely, more elaborately, a recapitulation where other points are filled in, and then maybe even a summary at the end. So just as we were talking about the section on, devoting oneself to the spiritual friend, the virtuous friend, the Gewei Shenyan Kalyamitra. We talked about how many ways are there to devote oneself to the Guru? Do you know? Venerable? Huh? How are those?
By offering service.
Well, you're thinking of in terms of practice, and usually say one can devote oneself in thought and in action. And in action, there's these three. Okay. But so usually we say in thought and action. What are the ways, do you remember in terms of thought, what were the ways, how does one practice devotion? After you've already developed faith, that has to come first, right? Thinking of the reasons, how it's possible to have faith, how our own opinions are not reliable, how all the reasons the Buddha predicted that the Buddha would appear as gurus, and all the advantages of that. You have to have thought of that beforehand. Then in actually practicing devotion in thought, how do you do that? What are the two main outlines? Do you know, Carrie?
I'm guessing I think number one would be see your guru as Buddha.
I hope someday you'll be able to go beyond guessing. I'm joking. So what was that? See the guru as Buddha?
See your guru as Buddha. Mm-hmm.
So what, does anyone know?
You know, if you're familiar with the outlines, there are two outlines.
Seems ease, kindness is.
That's developing respect by remembering their kindness, and that's one, and one is developing what? Faith by remembering the qualities. So, for instance, like when you develop faith in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha as objects of refuge, also, one of the ways you do that is you think about the qualities of Buddha and the qualities of Dharma and Sangha. Then you can develop some faith. And of course, whether those qualities exist or not, that's something you have to develop some certainty in your own mind, right? It's just like, oh, the Buddha's omniscient, I should have faith. You have to, over time, you have to kind of develop some certainty that that's true, so that this kind of meditation is something authentic. It's not just, just verbally saying something. So actually developing a faith, because it's not yet direct knowledge. That's why we call it faith. It's still something you're taking on faith, but it can become based on deeper and deeper reasoning, faith of conviction, and so forth. So strong that you can develop the faith of aspiration to want to achieve that state yourself, right? So looking at the qualities of the guru, thinking of the knowledge and qualities. For instance, if you think of the 10 qualities of a Mahayana guru, or the other qualities that you've begun to see, and so forth, then you develop another state of mind that's similar to faith, called respect. Tibetan we say gupa, through recalling the kindness, as Venerable said a minute ago. So thinking of the kindness, and how were they kind? Remember? You were going to say? Oh no, you were giving another enumeration. Gurus have been kind in many different ways. Lama Tsongkhapa's quotes from various sutras, how one can actually think and emote the kindness of the guru, to develop that feeling, that warmth of heart toward the guru. In Christianity, which I think of as having a similar kind of thing, how do people develop that warmth toward God? God was a creator, and so forth. Pardon? Well, like the same state of respect for God. Sometimes there's a fear factor, right? This is the name of a TV show, isn't it? Fear factor. There's a fear factor. There's a sense of, many people feel that warmth and love for God, right? So how does that engendered in Christianity?
The stories of Jesus and the deeds that he did.
Well, Jesus, but I'm talking about God. Okay, I did say Christianity, but...
Of God through the stories of his son.
Okay. Definitely.
He would send his only begotten son.
There you go. Okay, kind. He wants us all to do good and so forth. Some kind of anthropomorphic. That there's a heaven that's created, and if we please God, we can go there. If we're bad, we'll be punished, and so forth. So there are ways of developing that in Christian thought. I don't know about Islam, how maybe there's more the sense that God is more the stern one. No? Also loving? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Islam.
there's a lot of love and protection.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a lot of similarities, I think.
Right.
There's a lot of similarities, but also there's, at least in some manifestations today, although it changes over time historically, one gets the feeling that there's a lot of feeling that God can be very wrathful. There's that very, very strong, and if you don't do it right, you have the right to go on a jihad and destroy these other people and so forth. But there is that loving aspect too. So here, how you develop that warmth toward the Guru, who is the manifestation of the Buddha in this time and age, is by remembering their kindness in different ways, as is given the quotations here, or as sometimes when we talk about the kindness of the Vinaya Guru, the teacher who gives ordination. So kind in giving us ordination. Mark, remember, if you're thinking that, kindness in giving ordination, kindness in giving teachings and guidance, like in the scriptural knowledge, and kind in giving material aid. Sometimes the teacher will actually give material aid. Even to think everything that I have, every karma that I have, I would say everything that I have is a result of my past karma. I shouldn't think that it's mainly the result of my work. I got it myself this lifetime. I mean, you may have created some cooperative cause to have some good conditions. You have your tape recorder, or your house, your condominium, or... Where are you from? Hong Kong or Taiwan? Hong Kong. Do you used to talk about the 3 C's or 4 C's? This is more Singapore, I think. Which Somo was it? What do they call it? Condominium, credit card, country club, and car, I think. I can't remember. There's 4 C's or something like that. So you could think that you got them, or you could think of yourself as privileged. Somehow you deserve them. From a Buddhist perspective, we see that there's no way that we could have these 4 C's or anything else. I'm trying to think what. Companions, maybe you could say. Or concubines? I don't know. Anyway. So there's no way you could have these 5 C's now, unless you created the karma in previous lifetimes. How did you create that karma? You might say, well, I was a good guy, I was a good gal, and I just naturally, I'm good. No. The only way that we create virtue originally is through the guidance of the spiritual teacher. Manifesting sometimes as our parent, as they themselves have received teachings from their spiritual guides, and they inculcate us. And so indirectly or directly, all of the karma, virtuous karma that we create, is a result of the guidance of the Guru, the Buddha. And therefore, if you think of it in that way, everything, all the material that we have, not just the things they physically give us. Here's a set of robes. Lama Zopa Rinpoche gave me a set of robes the other day. Not just that, or a cup of tea when you go to their room, or whatever. But all of the material that we experience can be seen as a result of the kindness of the Guru. All the happiness that we experience. Do you know the prayer? Rita, can you explain the prayer when we say Lama Sangye Lama Che, Dejin Lama Gendunte, Kungi Chepo Lama Te, Lama Namla, sometimes Kapsuchi or Chobabo, depends. I take refuge or I make offerings. So Lama Sangye, the Guru is Buddha.
Guru is Sangha also. Guru is the originator of all goodness and happiness.
So in that
Case, it just says the Kungi Chepo Lama Te. Kun means all. Jepo means creator. It's creator of all. It doesn't say goodness, but that's how we're interpreting it. It's interesting. It's like almost sounds like Christianity. It sounds like that the Guru is the creator. But it doesn't mean the creator of our soul, or that the Guru zapped down the world for us. But the Guru Buddha is the creator of all that we find that's good, in that they have inculcated us, they've taught us in past lifetimes. So the universal Guru who's been guiding us since beginning us lives. They led us into practicing virtue, which now is ripening as, something comfortable. That's uncomfortable, isn't it? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So that's the way to practice, the two ways to practice in thought, through developing faith by remembering the qualities, developing respect by remembering the kindness.
Did I hear you correctly? Did you say that you can't create any virtue on your own without a guru? Did I hear you correctly?
It almost seems that way, because although one might say, well, look there's no guru now. I'm in California. I'm in my little room, and there's no guru around forcing me to create virtue. But I'm a good guy. I'm creating virtue. The only way that we have virtuous instincts in our mind is that imprints, habit energy was formed somewhere in the past through the guidance, either direct or indirectly, of the guru. Might not have been direct. It might have been the guru taught others who taught others who taught us. The Buddha. So we think of it that way. The other way of practicing, as Venerable Rita said before, was not just in thought, is in practice or in activity. And so we didn't talk too much about that. The behavior that one has with respect to the guru. The ways of practicing guru devotion in action, as is exemplified in various famous texts like the 50 verses of guru devotion and so forth. There's three main ways that one can practice devotion in action. Do you know, Venerable? You were going to say before what they were. So making material offerings, or praise and so forth. Like you could say puja, or it doesn't have to be just physical puja. You're actually bringing to your guru, offerings, light and cake, whatever they like, And then? Service. So that would include if they need their hair cut, or their body massaged, or their feet washed, or working for them at the center. If feet washed, maybe you don't feel it. Or, say serving, like serving Lama Zopa Rinpoche, serving the Dalai Lama, going to some place and bearing with the hardships to help to fulfill their Dharma aims is one of the very powerful ways of practicing guru devotion in action. Bearing with the hardships, and so forth. And the third way?
In practice?
Yeah, it's said to be the peerless kind of practice of devotion and action, is to put into practice what the gurus are teaching. It said that real guru, even you bring offerings, bring big piles of gold, or, cream cheesecake, or, gelato. Real guru would be uninterested in that. They might show pleasure so that you could create some virtue, but from their own side, they feel uninterested. Like the example that you've probably heard me talk about before, like putting a bale of hay before a lion. Can you imagine that? Or tiger. It's like uninteresting to the, it's just like they're not interested in eating that. It's what my teachers, Lama Zopa Rinpoche and Lama Yeshe, used to say that when one of their teachers, Kunalama, what's his name? I can't remember his first name. Tenzin Gyaltsen, I say, who's also the guru of the Dalai Lama. Great. Who taught the Dalai Lama the Bodhisattvacharya Vatara, this great being who appeared as in his later years as a sadhu living on the Ganges in Varanasi, and no one knew that, the people around him didn't know that he was this great saint, great realized being. He just was just in the world. And he came to Bodh Gaya once when the Dalai Lama was giving the Kalachakra initiation. And apparently His Holiness was walking toward the stage, and he saw Kunalama, and the police were trying to push him out of the way. They thought this guy just in dirty clothes and everything. And His Holiness stopped and made prostrations right in the road toward Kunalama, and everyone went, ah! You can imagine, who is this? And so then, recognizing him as someone special, they began to watch. So Kunalama, even you offered him, credible gifts later when he left the room to go to another monastery, if you looked under his bed, all the gifts were there. You know, he never used anything, or he'd give it to other people when they came into his room. One person leaves a gift, the next person comes, he gives them the gift, or something like that. So when we talk about making offerings, that's one of the reasons, one of the ways. We don't give. We don't give offerings to the gurus simply to get, kind of like, what's a worldly kind of thing, to kind of get their favor, like they'll do favors for us because we gave them something. It pleases the gurus only to the extent that we create virtue that way. And when you give offerings, you should try to give only the best quality. Even if it's your visualization, try to make beautiful offerings of, nectar and bathing water and incense and flowers and lamps and so forth, all the various kinds of offerings. Elaborately, you create virtuous karma in doing so. And when you give physical offerings, you should try to give high quality, not just, you save the best for yourself and give the guru just some piece off the crust, off the corner or something like that, the low quality one. Actually, you can create some hindrances that way to your own practice. I remember once bringing offering to Lama Yeshe. I remember Lama Yeshe loved to have bottles. So someone had given me a bottle when I was in Holland, and like a vase. So I brought it to Lama, and rather than offering it empty, I went to the kitchen and I asked, could I take some milk and put it in here? I thought that would be very auspicious, filled with milk. When I gave it to Lama, and Lama said, oh, very nice. Where did you get this milk? And I said, I borrowed it from the kitchen. Lama. He said, yeah, go give it back and fill it with water. And he brought it back. And so, what's more important than rather than trying to give something that's not really yours, give something, even something water that is free and pure. That's why when we offer on the altar, we offer water and we visualize it as extensively increased and pure and so forth. You shouldn't offer something that's empty if you offer a vessel or a bag or something. You know the story of Milarepa when he first met Marpa? You know the story? So he had to need some offering. So what was Marpa's wife's name? Dagmema, I think, maybe. Something selfless or something. Can't remember. So she had a soft spot for Milarepa. So she said, come in the kitchen, we'll look around. So she found some pot that actually belonged to Marpa. She thought he'll forget that it's his, and so she gave it to Milarepa to give to him. So he comes out and gives it to Marpa. And Marpa's unpleased by this because it's empty. And that creates the karma, to offer something that's empty creates the karma to be devoid of, pleasure in the future. Supposedly that's the reason that one of the karmic omens that Milarepa's life would be one of austerity. He wasn't known to have had lots of, pleasures and so forth. But what Marpa did is he immediately took that pot and he took a stick or something and he beat it so that the room filled with the sound, and it said by Marpa's skillful action, this was auspicious for Milarepa's teachings, even though his life would be one of austerity, that he would have great resounding realizations and his teachings would spread everywhere. So there are different disciplines you can learn, especially when you study Tantra, or as you see, emulate the teachers, Lama Zopa Rinpoche and so forth, when he makes offerings very, very elaborately and to please the guru. Also, you shouldn't give what you want, although if you find something pleasing, that's good. But if that doesn't please the guru, you shouldn't force it on them. You should give them what they want. It's said that even if the guru wants old bones and rags, and you say, oh no, I'll give you nice stuff. I don't want to give you old bones and rags. But if that's what they want, that's what you should give them. Maybe there's some very special, maybe they need that for some ritual or something, and you come back and you give them something else. So the main thing is to please the guru. Also in service, to serve. It's said that the karma you create in serving, helping to perpetuate a Dharma center like this at the bequest of the guru, is proportional to the number of atoms in that center. So the larger the center, the more ramifications that it will have for the benefit of others, the more karma you create. So to serve at a center like Vajrapani or Land of Medicine Buddha or wherever, creates, thinking of this as one's practice of guru devotion. This is one of the ways of serving the guru, fulfilling their wishes if they've asked you to go somewhere to do something like that. To be the SPC or XYZ or whatever kind of acronym there is. And then to put into practice the peerless kind of offering, the teachings, actually to practice, calming your mind, overcoming your faults, to become less judgmental of others, to become kinder, to act in a way that Jesus taught also. You do act unto others the way that you'd like them to act unto you. You don't want to be criticized for everything you do wrong, so don't criticize others. Just to put into practice all of the teachings of the Guru. That's what pleases the Buddhas most. So that's what would really please the Buddhas. So in a sense, that's a way of practicing Guru devotion in action. Okay, so there's a way to do it in thought, in meditation, developing faith and developing respect, and in that meditation also praises and so forth. That also can be kind of in offering to the Guru praises and so forth. So before we break, let's start the next section again that we were alluding to last time. So now we get to the point after that, the section on relying on the teacher, a brief indication of how to sustain meditation. So this has two parts: the actual way of sustaining, which is this 5th chapter, and the refuting misconceptions about meditation, chapter 6. So the actual way of sustaining meditation has two parts: what to do during the actual meditation and what to do between sessions, meditation sessions. So sometimes the Lamas say that all of our life as a practitioner can be divided up into two parts: meditation and post-meditation. You might say, well, what about pre-meditation? But that's actually post-meditation, right? So if you've at least done one meditation session in your life, everything else may be post-meditation. But theoretically, you do some meditation every day. And like if you do 4 sessions or 6-session yoga, you try to concentrate in that time. And 6-session yoga, you try to develop faith and respect through the various verses that recall that. And then you can use the Lam Rim teachings to help, to enliven that so that those verses mean more to you. And then you make offerings of various kinds, which are like, even though the physical guru may not be there to receive them, that's practicing guru devotion in action, the various offerings that one makes and praises and so forth. So here the first thing is what to do during the actual meditation session. This has 3 phases, meditation. You could say the beginning, the middle, and the end, or you could say the preparation. What's that? What's preparation? Jorwa, or sometimes we think ngundro. Ngundro means preliminary practices, but here we could say jorwa, preparation, actual session, ngushi, and the conclusion, juk. So the preparation is very important. Here it's talking about as the tradition that came down from Atisha through Serlingpa. Who is Serlingpa? Yeah.
Teacher.
Atisha's teacher.
Yes.
He lives where?
South Dakota.
Some island in the
Indonesia.
Maybe, yeah, maybe Sumatra. He's called Sumatra. No, not Sumatra. He's okay, Serlingpa. He talked about the six preparations. So when you do various teachings on Lam Rim or on Jorcho. Venerable, you do Jorcho sometime? What does Jorcho mean?
Don't know.
Preliminary practices.
I don't know.
So it's
Including these six, mainly these six practices, but sometimes not all of them are all elucidated very clearly. Cleaning well the place where you're staying and neatly arranging the representations of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. That's the first. So these are useful to know if you ever were to be in a place where you wanted to practice, to know what these are without, say you don't have any books with you. Cleaning the place is part of this, and then setting up an altar, in other words, with representations of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. What's a representation of the Buddha's body? A little piece of like relic from the Buddha, like flesh or hair or something? Pardon? No, not stupa. Body of the Buddha is represented by either a statue or a photo or a tanka of the Buddha's form, like Nirmanakaya or Sambhogakaya form, right? Even if it's not elaborate, doesn't have to be, you have to have a big gold statue. It can be something very, very simple, right? What represents the Buddha's speech on the altar? Can be the Buddha's teaching, so it can be one of the, say in the Tibetan tradition, one of the texts from the Kangyur, where the Buddha taught. Or you could put like translation of the Vajracetaka or the Heart Sutra on one part of your altar. And then what represents the mind? Now you get a stupa often, which is represents the Buddha's omniscient mind. So although not all altars have that, this one doesn't have that particular layout. Often if you set your own altar, you put the Buddha's body in the center and representations of the speech. So there'll be a volume of the text or a small text on one side and a stupa, even a photo of stupa on the other. And what would you put? You put the pictures of the gurus below the Buddha? Well, the Buddha is most important, isn't it? Actually, the gurus, if any representations of the gurus, should go above, just as we'll talk later in the visualization of the tree of assembled gurus, to create merit. The central, most high, important thing is the guru. And then I'll just enumerate these and then we'll go over later. So the first one is cleaning the place, which we'll talk about, and neatly arranging representations of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. Obtaining offerings without deceit. That means by right livelihood, not like myself in the kitchen taking the milk and putting it, and arranging them beautifully. So as is here, it incredible, Venerable Somo and Venerable Thea, and probably this is all Venerable. This is an auspicious event. She'll be Venerable Thea soon. Incredible effort they go to setting these up very beautifully. Sitting straight upon a cushion, the third one, a comfortable seat in a suitable posture with your legs either in the crossed leg position, fully crossed, or half lotus position, and then absorbing yourself in the practice of going for refuge and developing bodhicitta. And then fourth, imagining the tree of assembled gurus in front. And 5, offering the 7-limb puja. And then 6th, what's the 6th? Comes at the end, right? You have to get past the puja here. What's the 6th one? Was it? Once you have pictured in your mind the objects of the mandala and having offered the mandala, making the following request. So it means finally, after offering the 7-limb puja, to offer the mandala and making a special request, and then on the basis of that, beginning the meditation. So that's just the preparation. So all the time. So let's take a little break. Okay. Okay, I said okay. So, what can I say? How do I say? They're different. If you listen to the Dalai Lama, it's very funny. He uses some kind of expressions like that. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Not so much a question, but perhaps just a thought about all the material that we cover from class to class. I've often thought, from my side, it might be easier to take in the material if you let us know. I want you to memorize and learn these particular things, and like a list, so that we can go into the material and do some more intensive focusing.
You could. Some people like to do that. I don't
have
like
an
to.
expectation that we should know. Is that
Yeah.
not
Well, this is
everybody
What
else?
we're doing. This is what we're doing with in class. I could read every word of the book, but what I express in class is mainly sort of like what I feel important points that you may find in the exam. For instance, talking about the outlines and asking you questions. So there are different ways. In the monasteries, they never, when one studied, the teachers may say certain points are more important, but the way the education came about was in debating the subject with others, so discussing it with your Dharma friends. All of the points are important. If you wanted to, when you're reading the text, if you want to know, which sentences, which ideas are more important than others, we try to go over that in class. So I'm leaving it as this is a modern. There's some teachers in the West who are teaching in the West, and they give everything laid out and, how do you say, important points and outlines. And to me, that's a little bit. It's not my style. It's not how I've learned. So I may not be the perfect teacher for you if you like that way. But no. But no, I was just afraid. I'm not. I don't. Every teacher will have different modes of teaching. It's said that I remember Soquel Sencho Rinpoche used to say, sometimes you'd think, this teacher, they left out these important points. They didn't talk about that. Or they didn't do this, or they have a different way of doing this or that. But different teachers will, Soquel Rinpoche used to say, even one Buddha doesn't teach everything, the subsequent Buddhas will fill in, Very often you'll study something with one teacher, and they'll maybe skip some section. Then later, when someone else teaches that section, almost amazing, that section will sooner or later get filled in by someone else. Also, different teachers have different methods of teaching. Lama Yeshe and Geshe Darge, quite different ways of teaching, and they both respected one another as great teachers, So it's just not my style. I remember teaching Lama Osel, when I was teaching Lama Osel at Sarah, and Lama Osel was playing all the time, and I would sometime I would ask Lama Sopa Rinpoche, Lama's not studying, doesn't seem like he's taking seriously. And it doesn't matter, 12, 11, 10. So Lama Sopa Rinpoche would look kind of like this, That's Lama's style. Kind of taking easy and not taking that aspect. Yeah, doesn't mean that he was taking easy and take things very seriously. But so if we want everything homogeneous, to me that's one of the signs of when things become too solidified and hierarchy and codified, that's kind of a sign that things they're not alive, to me. And I'm not saying you're saying, I'm just saying, like for instance, any kind of religion. At the beginning, Christ taught, the Buddha taught, and then later that was codified, and then more codified, and then the Tibetans said, it's almost like you just had to learn these things, and that was it. But Buddhism is something very organic. It's a long journey, and not these facts are not the most important thing. It's the living of them, putting them into practice. And so, anyway, that's not an answer to your question, but anyway. Let me continue, okay? Otherwise, we'll go. About the first preparation, cleaning the place where you're staying. That doesn't mean your whole house, right? It means the meditation room. You should clean your house too. I'm not saying you shouldn't clean your house, but this is referring to cleaning the meditation room and neatly, beautifully arranging representations of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. So when you clean, there are certain disciplines, and there's an incredible importance in doing so, incredible virtuous karma in cleaning. Have we talked about the story of the so-called Lam Chung and Lam Chen? We haven't talked before? You must have heard. Lam Chung means little path, and Lam Chen means great path. I can't remember the Sanskrit names of these two. They were great disciples of the Buddha. So one family in India at the time of Buddha had trouble. Many of their children, the wife would get pregnant and give birth, but the child would die within days, hours. And several times the children had been born this way, and she went to the priest, or I'm not sure if she went to one of the disciples of Buddha or a Hindu priest, but anyway, the suggestion was that she should take the child, as soon as it was born, put some butter in its mouth, bring it to crossroad, where very busy place where many people would be crossing, and whenever a spiritual person came, monks or whatever, ask them to bless the baby and pray for its long life. So she did that. She herself brought the baby, and that baby survived. It grew up, and as it was growing up, it showed great spiritual promise, was very intelligent, became a disciple of Buddha, and became an arhat. Now, while that was happening, after he was born, she had another child, but this time she was a little, I don't know if you say lazy or forgetful or something, so she gave the child to the maid, young girl, and asked the maid to take it out, told her what to do. The maid was a little bit lazy also, and rather than taking it to a big road, big intersection, she brought it to this, just went out to this small road and waited. Practically no one came by. And I think maybe someone blessed it, but not the same kind of blessings as before. So the first one is called Lam Chen, which means great path, make great road, highway. And the other one was called Lam Chung, small road, small path. So the younger one, although the older excelled, was intelligent and so forth, the younger one was a bit dull, like us, like me. And he was just not too sharp. What did they say? Not the sharpest blade in the. What would you say? Not the sharpest. No, I'm asking Tenzin. He's a cook. Come on. Is that
Sharpest knife in the kit.
And the kit. Okay, that's what I wanted the right terminology. So, at one point, he was given over to his older brother to be tutored. So he tried to teach him the alphabet. You know the Sanskrit alphabet? They're like the Tibetan alphabet, except there's one other aspirated K sound. So ka 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 nga, ka 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 ga, ka 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 ga nga. So when he taught him ka, it took him a long time to learn that. But when he learned that and he taught him ka, second letter, he would have forgotten the first letter. Then you go back teaching him the first letter, they would have forgotten the second letter. So this went on for a long time. I mean, this is not the sharpest knife in the kit, right? So then later, when he learned the alphabet, he tried Lam Chen, the older brother, tried to teach the younger brother some verse. So he took him outside so they could recite it very loudly, way out, away from the house, where the shepherds were. Right, Venerable? You remember this story? Read it? You know. Oh. Oh yeah. So even the shepherds are there. So while the older brother is causing Lam Chung to recite this verse that he's trying to memorize, he memorizes one line, then he learns the second line, and he forgot the first line again. So it's going on. But even after many, many weeks of this, even the shepherds who weren't paying much attention have memorized the verse because they've heard it But Lam Chung, is like really bad. So they're getting fed up. They don't know what to do. So the Buddha appears out of his compassion and omniscience and suggests that Lam Chung clean the shoes of the Sangha, that he can do something, that this is his first task. So at the monastery where the sandals, not shoes, sandals, the Sangha, so he cleans them, the mud off and so forth. Then after he does that for some time, it created some virtuous karma, because Sangha is a very, very powerful object of karma. Then the Buddha gives him a task in the meditation hall. He says, you should sweep the meditation hall, and just go from one end, just keep on sweeping away the dust and this dirt until you get to the other end, and until it's clean. And you should say a verse. So he gave him a verse to memorize, which by this time he could memorize verse. I sweep away dust, I sweep away stain. I sweep away dust, I sweep away stain. So he does this, and by the time he finishes, I guess he must be facing one way, maybe facing backwards. So when he finishes the room sweeping, he turns around and he sees the room is dirty again, because it takes some time. It's a big meditation hall, right? So he does this for a long time, and realizes, in so doing, that that as he's doing this, he's creating virtuous karma. Because of the holy object, the Sangha's possessions and so forth. And the action of sweeping is not just done just as a mundane action. It's thought of, this is the same as sweeping away, like we say in the Mahayana thought training, like this. When you clean the dishes, you clean off the spaghetti or whatever from your dish, and think, like this, may I clean my own mind and the minds of all sentient beings of delusions and imprints just as easily. So that action becomes incredibly virtuous. When you do any kind of action like that, there are different methods in the mind training to think. So essentially, what he was saying is that you should clean away the delusions and clean away the stains of the delusions in order to achieve realizations and liberation and enlightenment. So eventually, Lam Chung actually had very high realizations. I think, first of all, he was an Arya. I'm not sure when it took place, a famous case that the nuns had to have someone to give a talk amongst the monks at the nunnery. So at one time it was said that, okay, now Lam Chung is going to come and give the talk. I can't remember what his name is. It keeps on coming. I think it's Chuna something. Chuna means short, I think, in Sanskrit. I can't remember. So the nuns are going, talking about getting dissed. Lam Chung is coming to teach us, the monks are really making fun of us. This is an insult. So they built this huge throne, kind of like the story of Shantideva, huge throne as though, and no steps, as though, so how is he going to get on this? And he's very highly realized already at this time, even though people thought of him as a dummy. And he gave a discourse and, opened people's minds. So he's amongst the disciples of the Buddha. I think the two brothers are amongst the 16 arhats, no? 16 elders. We call it, usually we call the 16 arhats. It's not actually how it's called in Sanskrit or in Tibetan. We call the Naten in Tibetan, Staiviras, elders. So Venerable's been ordained for 13 years, you said, right? So you're an elder. You're an elder. Maybe, I don't know, you may be an arhat, but you're an elder. And then if you've been ordained, when you're ordained 20 years, you'll be called a great elder, What do we call? We call, in the Theravada tradition, because actually in Sanskrit it's Staiviravada, right? In Pali, you say Staivira, which means elder, as Tera, because they don't have distinct conjunct consonants. If you don't have STH. You can have double consonants, but not in Sanskrit. Like you don't have karma, you have kama, K-A-M-M-A, right? Remember, I've told you many times, it's like John Kennedy pronouncing Sanskrit. Kama, Dhamma, like Pak the Ka and the Havad. So, those of you who've heard these jokes many times, you'll say, oh, why does he tell the same jokes all the time? But there's some new people. So Theravada actually means the pronouncements of the elders. So Staiviravada in Sanskrit. So if you're in the Theravada tradition, when you're a monk or nun for 10 years, you're called a Thera, elder. And when you're ordained for 20 years, you're called Mahathera, a great elder. So Venerable's approaching, hopefully she'll be Mahathera soon. So with his psychic powers, that's all you have to do. So when you clean your meditation place, there are different disciplines. Serkan Senchab Rinpoche used to explain, when you're cleaning, you should think like this: may I clean up this dust, all the delusions of sentient beings, just this easily. You put it in, let's say, in a dustpan or on a piece of cardboard or whatever, and you take outside. You don't just toss out your window or, but if you take outside, it might be just your wastebasket in your kitchen or in some other place. You think that the Lord of Death comes up from 9 levels, all the different levels of hell to the surface, opens his mouth, and you take this dust and you bless it with Omahung, blessing mantra 3 times, and you transform it into nectar, and you pour into the mouth of the Lord of Death, satisfying him. And then his mouth closes, and you imagine a crossed Vajra. So it's like his mouth's not going to open again. And then it's not like telling him to shut up. It's just like his Lord of Death sort of is inauspicious for your own lifespan. So here's those satisfying the Lord of Death by your practice, mouth closed, goes down below the lowest hell. So Serkan Rinpoche said one of the most powerful long life kinds of practices you can do, you do every day. So when in your preliminary practice, if you clean, you may not have to sweep your room every day, clean the altar and so forth, clean the statues. If the statues are arranged, it doesn't mean you have to rearrange them every day. Once you set up, you arrange, but you can clean a little bit, and that constitutes, this kind of purification and arrangement constitutes the first preliminary practice, okay? So you can think of the great Lam Chung and Lam Chen. I'll see if I can find the Sanskrit names next time. When you do this, and through that practice, Lam Chung was able, even though he was probably none of you are as bad as, although you might think that, as Lam Chung. He was able to attain, arhatship that lifetime. What? You're worse? Okay. I sometimes, when I ask if anyone's has any questions, I sometimes wonder. No one has. Okay. Second one, obtain offerings without deceit and arrange them beautifully. So when you're, as a preliminary practice, then part of the practice of guru devotion in action is to make offerings, right? So here, although the guru may not physically be present, so there's a difference, offering to the merit field and offering to the physical guru. It's said that you accrue more merit if you actually, when you offer to the guru who can actually accept. The main difference is that they actually physically accept the physical guru. So if you can make offerings of physical guru, that's very good. Otherwise, you can make offering to the guru in your visualization and make, water offerings and flowers and incense and lamps and perfume and food and so forth. So you should obtain the offerings without engaging in the 5 wrong livelihoods. It's just, sort of deceitful behavior. Remember when we talked about mental factors, there was a difference between dissimulation and deceit. What are the different ways they translate? One you kind of you present something that is not really there. some kind of pretend you have qualities you don't really have. Another kind of deceitful behavior or inappropriate behavior is when you pretend not to have the faults you do have. Right? So you remember we talked about Geshe Bungengel before, who had this very pure Kadampa practice. When the benefactors were coming to his little hermitage, and at first, the eight worldly dharma mind comes in, oh, maybe they'll make some offerings. I better clean up the place. So he cleans up his altar, puts out offerings that are not usually there. And then he thinks about it and he realizes this is all done out of the evil thought of the eight worldly dharmas. So he took ashes from his fire and threw them on the altar so it looked dirty again. And one of the lamas in the vicinity that had clairvoyance and said something to the effect that, I'm not sure if he called him by name, Bumgengel, or whether he just said some Kadampa Lama, or maybe he said Bumgengel, has made peerless offerings just now. So recognizing that this is actually pleasing to the gurus, countering the evil thought of the eight worldly dharmas. But if you can obtain flowers, don't steal them from the florist. Don't cut them from the garden that's not yours. But you can, if you go, you can find wildflowers. You can, if you have finances, you can purchase, or you can get silk flowers that last, for many years. You might have to invest a couple dollars and put on your altar as that you visualize. Then whatever you put, you visualize increased. Okay, so. This is the second preparation to the meditation session. First you clean, you arrange the representations of the body, speech, and mind of Buddha, and secondly you prepare offerings or obtain offerings without deceit, and arrange them beautifully. Then the third thing is to, upon a comfortable seat, which usually should be raised in the back so that your spine is not put in pressure, or if your legs are not such that they're supple enough to sit cross-legged, to sit in a chair with your spine erect. And in a suitable posture, your legs either in the full or half lotus position. Actually, we don't in Tibetan Buddhism, they don't call when both legs are crossed, is it called the full lotus position? It's called the Vajra asana. In yoga, in Hindu yoga, they might call something like that, but the lotus position is different. In fact, it's not even called. It's called Dorje. This is called Dorje Kiltung or Vajra asana, when both legs are crossed, and then the other one is called half Vajra position. It's not called lotus position, but the translators here maybe views that because that's kind of what we talk about it being lotus position. That's not Buddhist terminology. Lotus position is like the position of the consort of Vajrasattva, with the legs around the father. That's called the lotus posture. So here, sit up straight in a comfortable seat in a suitable posture. Here, I'm reading every word for Thea here. And your legs either in the full or half lotus posture, and then absorb yourself in the practices of going for refuge and developing bodhicitta. So what it means is, the first preliminary was arranging the altar, cleaning the place and the altar, preparing the altar, then arranging the offerings without deceit beautifully. Third, to sit down comfortably on your seat, which you arrange. Maybe you don't have to arrange it each time, and in the proper position where you feel some stability, and then to generate the refuge which distinguishes Buddhists from non-Buddhists. That's the distinguishing characteristic. When we take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, that distinguishes us from non-Buddhist. Right? Taking of bodhicitta, or generating bodhicitta in our continuum, distinguishes us from what? The Hinayana practice that the Buddha taught. So one does both of those as a part of this preliminary. So there often in the sadhanas, there are actually verses to do that. It says, Asanga's Shravaka Bhumi, the levels of the Shravakas, says to sit in the full lotus, or that means Vajrasana, upon a throne, means a seat. It doesn't mean like a throne of a king. A low seat or the like, in order to clear away obscurations such as longing for desirable objects, and to walk back and forth in order to clear your mind of obstructions of sleepiness and lethargy. So one of the reasons for doing walking meditation is not so much as is not so much as in the Theravada tradition, where it's taken as part of the close placement of mindfulness on the body, right? You know, when you see the Vipassana courses here, you see people walking very slowly. You might think that Buddhists are very slow, or they're trying to slow down their lives. They're trying to be mindful of every step, right? This is part of the close placement of mindfulness on the body. And then that's carried on into the meditation session when they're watching the breathing. That's still close placement of mindfulness on the body. And then later they'll go on to other things. But even eating meditation, close placement of mindfulness on the body. Here, when it's talking about walking in between sessions, it's not so much that, but it to overcome sleepiness and lethargy. So sometimes when you're meditating for a long period of time, you actually get up and walk for some time. Maybe you circumambulate. If you have a stupa or prayer wheel, you circumambulate, or the temple or whatever, in order to overcome lethargy and sleep. Okay, so that's the third preliminary. Fourth preliminary, visualize that seated in the space before you, here's imagine, you say visualize, seated in the space before you are the gurus of the vast and profound lineages. What are the vast and profound lineages? That's just one thing? Is it like, or is it like self-supporting, substantially existent? Remember, we meant that's just one. It's not like self-supporting and substantially existent. That's just referring to one thing, right? Well, here, when it says the vast and profound lineages, does that just mean one, it's just like just being poetic, oh, the vast and profound lineages. What does it mean? No? Tom, you know?
The extensive deeds through Maitreya and profound is wisdom through Manjushri.
So what word do they use instead of extensive? They're vast. You could translate. So gepa means kind of vast or extensive. So often we say the extensive deeds of the Bodhisattvas. So that means the 6 perfections or 10 perfections, all the various activities of the Bodhisattva. That talks about the method side of how the Bodhisattvas practice, especially as promulgated by Maitreya in his 5 texts. Okay. The method side, method is, when we talk about method and wisdom, right side method, wisdom left side, method is how we deal with conventional reality. Wisdom is how we deal with ultimate reality, ultimate truth. Wisdom that comprehends ultimate truth. So when we talk about wisdom, it's not talking about the wisdom of emptiness so much, although there are different kinds of wisdom. It's talking about the wisdom of emptiness. So when we talk about when we talk about the method side, here in the lineages, we talk about the lineage of extensive deeds. So that's talking about the teachings of the Bodhisattvas on the method side of things, developing bodhicitta, how one practices in the everyday world, create karma, how do you practice the 6 perfections, especially other than explicitly talking about wisdom. The wisdom lineage, the profound lineage, is talking about the profundity, the lineage that understands the profound, the deep. Sabmo in Tibetan means deep or profound. So that refers to the lineage that was sent down through Manjushri, or protected by Manjushri, and that exemplifies the Bodhisattva's perfection of wisdom. So remember we had that the chart that one day we held up in class. Don, you had, remember the wisdom tree. You don't have that with you, do you? No. So we'll bring. Okay, we'll bring that next time. We'll talk and reiterating this. We'll talk about that. So, on the, let's say if you were thinking the central figure is the Buddha, Shakyamuni. On the Buddha's right, because the right symbolizes method, is the lineage of gurus of extensive deeds, or here's his vast deeds, the vast. And on the guru's left is the lineage of the profound wisdom, the profound. So that's centered with Manjushri. So as you're looking, as Georgie is looking up here, if the Buddha was here, on the Buddha's right is Maitreya, and the Buddha's left is Manjushri. So as you're looking, to your right is Manjushri, to your left is Maitreya, right? Obviously. Encircling them are the various lamas of the lineages, starting the first human recipient of the teachings of Maitreya was whom? A Sangha. So a Sangha and his brother Vasubandhu and the other lineage lamas of India. And then after them, the Kadampa Geshis of Tibet, who, when we talk about the lineage that came down to us through this tradition, may have spread through China and other places, but that lineage is not one that we're actively receiving. So then the Kadampa Geshis, and then the Gelugpa Geshis, starting with Lama Tsongkhapa, who received that lineage from the Kadampas that came from Atisha. The Kadampa Geshe starting from Atisha, right? Who is one of the last of the lineage here of the Indian gurus surrounding. Then starting with the Tibetans, the Kadampa followers, then Lama Tsongkhapa, and then finally at the end, one empty throne, which is supposed to be for you, Dorji. Auspicious for you to become the next lineage holder of the. When you see the tankas, sometimes there's one. The last throne is empty, so it's auspicious for you to sit in that. And then on the other side, surrounding Manjushri. So if you look at the pictures, you can actually see the first recipient of the lineage of this profound lineage from Manjushri that had been taught by the Buddha was Nagarjuna. And then Aryadeva and the other lineage lamas of the profound, up till Atisha again. So Atisha received both. That was one of his great blessings that he brought to Tibet. He received both lineages, both the lineage of the vast deeds or extensive deeds and the profound wisdom. So then again, the same lineage then, the Kadampa lineage and then the Gelugpa lineage and also empty seat for Dorje at the end. Okay. Maybe you're going to be Nyingma, in the Nyingma lineage also, right? Or the Sakya, you have Sakya. Maybe you have seats in all. You'll be like one of those people, wherever you go, there's a seat waiting for you. Isn't that nice? So the fourth preparation is to visualize the field of assembled gurus. So imagine seated in the space before you are the gurus of the vast and profound lineages. So in this lineage, it comes down to the present. So even your, let's say, if this is a Dalai Lama or, your own guru in that lineage, having received the teachings from their teacher, which are in this lineage and so forth, as well as immeasurable, countless Buddhas, Arya Bodhisattvas, here it says noble Bodhisattvas, Pratika Buddhas, Shravakas, and those who abide in the Buddha's word. So what that means, as we had shown in the tree of assembled gurus, there are different ways of visualizing. Here, first of all, you can visualize them just all on one plane, on a beautiful, as though in you're visualizing a pure land, the ground like lapis lazuli, but resilient to the feet. As you step down, the ground gives. It's not like running, where you get this, your knees hurt because the road is so tough or something like that. The ground gives beautiful gold and lapis lazuli color, like pure land. And in the center is Shakyamuni Buddha, surrounded on the right and the left by these two lineages. And then encircling them, first of all, are all of the Buddhas of this eon. Let's say all the numberless Buddhas, but in particular you can think of the 1,000 Buddhas of this fortunate eon, the 35 Buddhas of confession, the 8 medicine Buddhas. What other Buddhas that take the aspect of the Nirmanakaya? Okay, so maybe some other Buddhas you can think of. Then around them, that is in another concentric circle a little bit further out, or if it's on the tree of assembled gurus, one layer in the lotus lower, are the bodhisattvas. So you can think of the 8 great bodhisattvas. Remember the 8 great bodhisattvas? What are the 8 great bodhisattvas? We said many times. Avalokiteshvara. Well, you can, because like in all the tankas, we always have 3 that represent the compassion, wisdom, and action of the Buddha, right? Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, Vajrapani. Then what? Maitreya is one of the important ones. What else? Avalokiteshvara we already did, right? Okay, anything else? What before the ones that are less known to us? Samantabhadra. So Maitreya, Samantabhadra. Then, as in the Chinese tradition, very important, Skittigarbha, like the statue here, up on the hill, Skittigarbha. Kagarbha, which is Akashagarbha. And Sarva Nivarana Vishkambini. His mother, she had a lot of kids. I was joke about him in the schoolyard there. How do they say? Long name, They must have had some nickname for him. So those are called the.
Italian bodhisattva?
He's a little bit like an Italian bodhisattva, I think. Sounds like that. So you can visualize the 8 great bodhisattvas and other bodhisattvas. And then around them, in a concentric circle further out from the guru, as though a manifestation of the root guru. This is when we're talking about root guru also. Further out are amongst the Hinayana practitioners, the more profound are the Pratika Buddhas, who accumulate merit for a longer period of time. So the Pratika Buddhas are further out. Then concentric circle, greater concentric circle, are the Shravakas, or the hearers, right? Those, the Hinayana practitioners who mainly meditate on the Four Noble Truths, like Shariputra and Mahamoggallana, and the 16 elders, or 16 Staiviras, or sometimes they call 16 Arhats. In Chinese tradition, there's one that, like the laughing Buddha is in there, right? That little sort of little chubby guy looks like Yeshe Gyatso. I hope he has the chance to hear that. But that's not one of the actual 16. So you can think of that the 16 elders, 16 Staiviras, and so forth. Sometimes we do the puja of the 16 elders, right? Sometimes they say 16 Arhat puja. And if you have a chance to read that puja, you can read their names and their entourage and what special prayers they made and things. Bakula Rinpoche, the great Lama who was the ambassador to Mongolia when Lama Zopa Rinpoche went some years ago for the first time, I had the good fortune of going along. Bakula Rinpoche was the ambassador. He was a monk, Rinpoche, from Ladakh, and considered to be the emanation of Bakula Arhat, one of the 16 Staiviras. And it's said that one of the great gurus of Mongolia, around some in the late 1800s or maybe the beginning of the turn of the century, he prophesied that in the future, Arhat Bakula would come and help to restore Buddhism in Mongolia. And so he wrote a long life and request for Bakula Rinpoche in Mongolian that the Mongolians learned for decades. Everyone knew this prayer to Bakula, as though there was some karmic connection between Bakula, Arhat, and Mongolia. And then when Bakula Rinpoche actually became the ambassador there, when he came to visit various places, the people would recite this verse. Have you heard it? And Bakula Rinpoche's attendant told me this. And it was sort of like, there it is, it happened. And so he helped to again to bring back Buddhism after the Mongolian, I guess called Mongolian Republic, split off from the, what was it called? USSR, I guess, when there was some of the countries decided to become independent. And I had a chance of teaching at Rinpoche's monastery, little boys, the first group of Mongolian monks, beautiful, so cute, so nice. And it was very, very moving. Okay, so outside the Shravakas then, here it doesn't mention the Dakas and Dakinis, does it? It says those who are bound by the speech. What does it say? Yeah. So it's a word that you see sometimes in the sadhanas. Usually that means protectors. But apparently here it also, unless they've left out something, usually it also implies the Dakas and Dakinis. So outside the, here, if we think in the tantric sense, also the Dakas and Dakinis, which are manifestations of the Buddhas. Here, maybe this is not talking from the tantric sense because it didn't mention the Yidams. Okay, maybe that's why the Dakas and Dakinis are not there.
In the footnote, it says the heroes and heroines, Dakas and Dakinis, and other protectors.
Yeah, it should, in the tantric sense, but here it didn't mention the Yidams, did it? So this sounds like it's just a sutra presentation, in which case they wouldn't explicitly say the Dakas and Dakinis, but you're right, they should be there. They would be next, and outside the lowest, in a sense, furthest away from the emanation of the Guru are the protectors. They should be the super-mundane protectors, not just worldly protectors that are still within samsara. They may take a mundane aspect, but they should be like Palden Lamo and other of the protectors that are actually enlightened beings. So one of the ideas of this is that in terms of Guru devotion, you try to see all of these manifestations that we learn from. We hear the stories of the Arhats, of Shariputra, and the Bodhisattvas and the Buddhas and so forth, the protectors, and so forth, the lineage gurus. We try to see them all as manifestations of our root guru, who is manifesting as Shakyamuni Buddha in the center. So when we talk about root guru, have we talked about root guru before? What does root guru mean? Someone who's in the nitty-gritty and down in the dirt, or what? What does that mean, root guru?
What I've heard
I won't crunch.
Lama say is the Lama who bestows the four empowerments upon you.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes can...
The Lama who bestows the four empowerments upon you?
Root guru can be the Lama who gives a full tantric initiation. That can be root guru. But when you investigate, you have to, maybe you even don't, this is like sometimes when you say, what is it? Was it this or that? And you might think I'm equivocating or not saying. Sometimes there are a lot of things that are not one-pointedly decided, like when we say, is there an end to samsara, and so forth. So maybe root guru can also be the guru with whom you have the closest karmic connection, with whom, when you think of them, the root of faith most easily rises, and that you can see all other gurus as emanations of them. Some of them, well, this guru, you might think, well, this one, I gave me a lot of problem, so I can't really see them as guru. But if you think of them as emanation of your root guru, your root guru, emanating to teach you the alphabet or whatever, even in this impure form, then there's a way to not to develop disrespect even for these other kinds of emanations. Also to think all of, like it says, the Buddha is the creator of all in the verse, Lama Sangye, Lama Cho, Dejin Lama Gendunte, Kungi Jepo, Lama Te, Lama Namla, Kyapsuchi, let's say, or Chobabu. In that verse, the creator of all can mean the creator of all emanations. So the root guru, sometimes we think, if you look at the tankas from the guru's heart, the central Buddha's Shakyamuni's heart, or if it's Lama Tsongkhapa's heart, light rays coming out, rainbow light rays coming out, and all of the gurus are kind of emanations. At the end of the puja, when we do Lama Chopa puja, at the end, all of the merit field slowly absorbs. The protectors absorb into the dakas and dakinis, the dakas and dakinis absorb into the hearers, who absorb into the pratika Buddhas, who absorb into the bodhisattvas, into the Buddhas, into the yidams, into the 4 classes of Tantra, into the lineage gurus, into the central guru who comes into your heart, and so forth. So you think of all of them as emanations. So that's a skillful way of thinking. When you think of all the various teachers you have, and you think, well, they can't be, they're not all Buddhas, it's just one, Sakya Trizin is Buddha, or Panara Rinpoche is Buddha, or Dalai Lama is Buddha. The rest are just something else, Rather than thinking that way, to think of your root guru in this, when you see this kind of tree of assembly, Soqing we say, so it means the field with which we assemble or collect virtuous karma, merit. So as you see all of them as emanations of the root guru, then you can kind of see even what you might think of common gurus as emanations of your root guru. Because your root guru, Dalai Lama is not going to come and teach you, alphabet or how tanka painting or something like that in general. You follow what I'm saying? Or teach you everyday things. So rather than thinking that this is just a mundane, lesser important individual, this is the manifestation of my guru. This is the Buddha also. So that gives you a way. Still, they're connected to the root. And the root is that either with respect to whom you've received the 4 empowerments, or who is guiding your life, that individual with respect to whom the root of faith most easily arises in your mind. So it's confidence, definite, no doubt, that's Buddha. Other ones maybe, I doubt, but still they're emanation. That's because they're showing that fault, because they're emanations of the guru, because the guru can't appear to me all the time in their usual form. I don't have the karma to see the guru in those perfect forms. So I think for me, that's a skillful way of, I don't say skillful way, that's a way, I'm not skillful, but that's a way to do that. Yes?
Mitukpa, is Mitukpa Buddha in there? In the merit field? And the other 4?
Mitukpa.
And,
It sounds like not tukpa. It sounds like
no soup or something. Mitukpa. No, not nuts. Okay. What? Mitukpa is one of the aspects of Buddha, so that would be amongst the circle or field of Buddhas. So, pardon? All those who appear as Nirmanakaya form, not the tantric yidams, but like say Amitabha and so forth. Amitabha as a yidam would appear also in the yidams. The 5 Buddha families would appear in the Buddha, but as yidams, because sometimes you meditate on them, there's initiations. You know what yidam means. Yidam, I can't remember how to pronounce the Sanskrit version, but it kind of means the meditation aspects of Buddha that we practice with respect to in Tantra to get closer to achieving those qualities. So it's something that we can call them meditational deities or so forth. They're not as though they're different aspects of Manjushri, for instance, that are yidams, different aspects, and that the colors and the mudras and the positions and so forth, the numbers of heads and so forth, and eyes and implements they hold, all are structured by the Buddha in such a way as to create the causes, the conditions, as we visualize ourselves in that way, for us to make various realizations, to get closer to that kind of emanation of the Buddha. That's why we do the different kinds of retreats that are called approximations, or nyenpa, we say, or approach. We don't usually talk, when you do a tantric retreat, it's not usually called just retreat. I'm going to do a retreat, like going away. It's called approaching. Almost sounds like the opposite of retreat, right? Retreat sounds like going back, and here's approaching. What Jeffrey Hopkins translates as divine approximation, nyenpa. Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to translate how? Closement retreat. Because nyenpa can mean close, but in English doesn't sound quite right. Closement means getting close to the deity, both in close in the sense of creating the karma. Let's say if you do a divine approximation of Tara or Avalokiteshvara, you create the karmic connection with that deity to be close to them, to be guided by them in the future, this life and in future lifetimes. Sometimes we have an affinity with a particular deity because of our creation of karmic connection with them in past lives. Like the Sangha, when he dropped the stick in the mandala and it fell toward Maitreya, meant he had a karmic connection, more karmic connection with Maitreya. Also close or approximating the deity in the sense that we approach becoming that deity, approach the qualities. We approach becoming Tara or Avalokiteshvara. So divine approximation when you talk about Tantra like that. In the Sutra tradition, usually you don't talk about approximation. You don't use the same kind of word. So then the fifth preliminary is the offering the 7-branch puja. Here it says, the cooperative conditions for the production of the path in your mind are the accumulation of the 2 collections of merit and wisdom, which are favorable conditions, so kind of like having the fertilizer and the moisture in the ground, and the purification of your mind from obscurations, which are unfavorable conditions, adverse conditions. So you want to accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative, right? So, as is often mentioned in the teachings, it's not enough just to meditate. Certainly not enough to study. That's enough to make realizations. You have to meditate, but it's not enough just to meditate, just to forget everything else. I'm not going to do any of these preliminary practices. Oh, this is just for sissies, pujas and offerings, flowers. That's for girls. I'm not going to do that. I'm a he-man. I'm just going to meditate, or maybe I'm a he-woman. That's for guys. That's not enough. You have to accumulate merit and purify negative karma as conditions for the realizations to arise in your mind. And the supreme way of doing that is to perform the 7-branch puja. So you should know what the 7 branches are. Now, come on, what are they? Prostrations, offerings, confession, rejoicing, because it's sometimes different order, request the Buddha to turn the wheel of Dharma, or to stay and to turn the wheel of Dharma. 2 different kinds of requests. One is urging to turn the wheel. One is requesting to stay, urging to turn the wheel of Dharma. Finally, dedicating the merits. So we'll go over that next time if you have a chance to watch the teachings of Kirti Sanjay Rinpoche when he taught the prayer of Samantabhadra. The verses of the 7-limb puja are from the prayer of Samantabhadra. Remember when Kirti Sanjay Rinpoche taught this somewhere last year? So these verses you can find, and you can see Vola's translation, and if you had taken notes at the time, you can kind of see that. And then finally, at the end, the last preparation, before you begin the meditation, is to make a request, preceded by offering of the mandala, that is kind of the quintessence of all of the practices of collection of merit and purification. The whole universe, your body, speech, and mind, your merits of the past, the present, the future, all embodied in a pure land, offering to the Guru. And then upon that, requesting the Guru to these 3 kinds of special requests to, bless me to overcome my wrong, to eliminate the wrong views, to bless me to obtain the right views, and to be free of all the hindrances, outer, inner, secret, whatever, So there are elaborate ways of saying. And then you meditate. The guru then comes, and the merit field absorbs into the central guru, comes into the crown of your head, into your heart. And then in that blessed state, having done the preliminaries, then the mind is very malleable, very susceptible to making realization. So that's what is done before you begin the meditation session on the Lam Rim. So let's dedicate the merits that we've created. It's the last of the 7 limbs. With a conventional mind that understands the meaning of dedication, recognizing that we have created some virtuous karma that will have results within cyclic existence as relief, as something experienced as samsaric happiness. May it ripen in such a way that it becomes a cause of my achieving the Arya path, becoming a Arya Bodhisattva, practicing the 10 bhumis, becoming Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Very strong wish, very strong aspiration, from which state, being a Buddha, I can benefit all sentient beings effortlessly. And then seal that, sort of soften it with a realization that I myself, the dedicator, I am not truly existent. Just impute it. I, the dedicator. This act of dedication can't be found anywhere. The merits that I'm dedicating are merely imputed. They're not truly existent. The goals dedicated to my achievement of the Bodhisattva path and enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings so I can effortlessly help them. Although it will function, it will come about because of these karmic seeds, it can't be found anywhere. It's merely imputedly existent.